The first time I saw her, it wasn't on a battlefield or during some grand diplomatic summit. It was in the quiet solitude of an ancient forest, where sunlight filtered through the canopy like liquid gold and the air carried the faint hum of life itself. She stood there, framed by towering trees that seemed to bow in reverence to her presence. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent glow, as though she had absorbed the essence of starlight and woven it into her very being. Her eyes, those impossible eyes, were vast pools of violet and silver, swirling with galaxies yet unseen by human eyes. She wore garments that defied description, flowing fabrics that shifted colors with every breath, as if they were alive. I froze, my hand instinctively reaching for the hilt of my sword before realizing how absurdly out of place violence would be here. This alien princess, whoever or whatever she was, radiated no threat. Instead, she exuded something far more profound: serenity. The kind of calm that made you question whether your own chaotic existence could ever measure up to such grace. My heart pounded not from fear but from awe, a sensation so foreign to me, a warrior trained to face death without flinching, that I almost didn't recognize it. Her gaze met mine, and for a moment, time ceased to exist. In those endless seconds, I felt stripped bare, not just physically but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It was as though she could see everything about me. My triumphs, my failures, my hopes, my fears. And yet, instead of recoiling in judgment, she simply smiled, a small, gentle curve of her lips that held no malice, only understanding. "You are different," she said finally, her voice soft yet resonant, carrying tones that seemed to harmonize with the rustling leaves around us. "Not like the others." "Others?" I managed to croak, still struggling to process what was happening. "The ones who came before you," she replied cryptically, tilting her head slightly as if studying a puzzle. "They brought chaos. You bring stillness." Before I could respond, she took a step closer, her movements fluid and deliberate, like water finding its way downstream. Up close, her beauty became almost overwhelming. Every detail, the delicate curve of her cheekbones, the intricate patterns etched into her skin like constellations, the faint scent of something floral yet otherworldly, demanded attention. But it wasn't just her appearance that captivated me, it was her presence. She didn't need words to command respect or admiration. She simply was, and that was enough. "I feel good near you," she whispered suddenly, her words catching me off guard. Her expression softened further, becoming almost childlike in its innocence. "Why is that?" For once in my life, I found myself at a loss for words. How do you explain something you don't fully understand yourself? All I knew was that standing there, bathed in the dappled light of the forest, surrounded by the symphony of nature and this ethereal being, I felt whole. As though all the pieces of me that had been scattered across countless battles and sleepless nights had suddenly clicked back into place. And then, just as quickly as she had appeared, she turned away, her luminous form blending seamlessly with the shadows between the trees. I called out to her, desperate to keep her from vanishing, but my voice faltered, swallowed by the silence of the woods. When I finally mustered the courage to follow, she was gone, leaving behind only the faintest trace of her scent and the lingering echo of her words. Days passed, though they felt more like years. I couldn't shake the memory of her, the way she had looked at me, spoken to me, as if I were someone worthy of her notice. Warriors like me weren't meant to dwell on such things. We were forged in fire and blood, our purpose clear and unyielding: protect, fight, survive. Yet here I was, haunted by an encounter that defied logic, reason, even reality itself. It wasn't until the third night that she returned. I was sitting by a campfire, staring into the flames as they danced and crackled, when I sensed her approach. There was no sound, no warning, just a shift in the air, a subtle change in the rhythm of the world. I turned, half expecting to find nothing but darkness. But there she was, stepping out of the shadows as naturally as if she belonged to them. This time, she didn't wait for me to speak. "Human," she began, her tone both curious and commanding, "you intrigue me." "Intrigue you?" I echoed, rising to my feet. "How?" She tilted her head again, considering. "You carry scars, both visible and hidden. Scars tell stories, do they not? Stories of pain, of struggle, of survival. Yet despite them, You remain open, vulnerable. She paused, her gaze piercing. Most beings with such wounds build walls. You have none. Her words struck a chord deep within me, one I hadn't realized existed until now. Was she right? Had I somehow managed to preserve a part of myself that others had long since buried? Or was she seeing something in me that I couldn't? I don't know what you mean, I admitted, shaking my head. I'm just a soldier. A fighter. Nothing special. Her laughter was like music, soft and melodic, filling the night with warmth. Ah, but that is where you are wrong, human. Special does not always mean extraordinary. Sometimes it means real, authentic, true. I wanted to argue, to dismiss her observations as fanciful nonsense, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the sincerity in her voice, or the way her eyes sparkled with genuine interest. Whatever it was, it silenced my doubts and left me feeling exposed in a way I hadn't anticipated. We talked for hours, or maybe it was minutes. Time lost all meaning in her presence. She asked questions about Earth, about humanity, about war and peace and everything in between. Some of her queries were simple, almost naive, while others delved into philosophical territory that left me grappling for answers. Through it all, she listened intently, absorbing every word as though it held the key to some great mystery. When the conversation inevitably turned to her, however, she grew evasive. My world is not like yours, she said cryptically. It is older, wiser, perhaps even crueler in ways you cannot comprehend. But it is also beautiful, in its own way. What's it called? I pressed, eager to learn more. She hesitated, her smile tinged with sadness. Names hold power, human. To give you mine would be to bind us together in ways neither of us may be ready for. Her response puzzled me, but I didn't push further. There was something sacred about the way she spoke, as though revealing too much might shatter the fragile connection we had formed. As dawn approached, she rose to leave, her figure glowing softly against the pale light of the rising sun. Before disappearing into the mist, she turned back to me, her expression unreadable. You should know, she murmured, that I rarely compliment anyone. So when I say you fascinate me, she trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. And then she was gone again, leaving me alone with my thoughts, and the growing realization that this mysterious alien princess had awakened something within me that I thought was long dead. Hope. In the days that followed, our encounters became less sporadic and more deliberate. Each meeting unfolded like a dance, each step guided by an unspoken rhythm that neither of us fully understood. She would appear without warning, sometimes in the heart of bustling cities, other times in the quiet solitude of deserts or mountains. Wherever she chose to reveal herself, the world seemed to pause, holding its breath as if aware of the significance of these moments. Our conversations deepened, evolving beyond mere curiosity into something resembling intimacy. She spoke of her people, their customs, their struggles, a civilization so advanced it bordered on incomprehensible, yet burdened by internal strife that mirrored humanity's own conflicts. Wars fought over resources, ideologies clashing like tectonic plates, leaders driven by ambition rather than compassion. Despite their technological marvels, they were not so different from us after all. But it was her personal revelations that struck me most profoundly. Beneath her regal demeanor lay a soul yearning for freedom, constrained by the weight of expectations placed upon her as royalty. To lead is to serve, she once told me, her voice heavy with resignation. Yet serving often means sacrificing oneself. I am expected to embody perfection, to inspire loyalty through strength and wisdom. But what of weakness? What of doubt? Are those not equally human, or, in my case, alien, traits? Her vulnerability disarmed me. Here was a being whose very existence defied imagination, yet she grappled with insecurities as relatable as my own. It made her less of an enigma and more of a kindred spirit, someone who understood the cost of wearing masks for the sake of others. One evening, under a sky painted with streaks of twilight, she shared a story that lingered in my mind long after the stars emerged. "There is a legend among my kind," she began, her gaze fixed on the horizon, "of a celestial gardener who tended to the universe, planting seeds of life on barren worlds. One day, he grew weary of his task and sought solace on a distant planet. There, he fell in love with a mortal woman, forsaking his duties for the fleeting joy of companionship. When the cosmos crumbled under neglect, the gods punished him, banishing him to wander eternity alone. She paused, turning to look at me. Do you think he regretted his choice? To trade infinity for a single lifetime of happiness? I hesitated, unsure how to answer. I think he wouldn't have traded it, no matter the consequences. Love, connection, they're worth any price. Her eyes softened, reflecting the dying light. That is why I admire you, human. You value impermanence. You cherish the now, even knowing it will fade. It was during these exchanges that I began to notice subtle shifts in myself. The cynicism I had cultivated as armor against the harshness of war started to erode, replaced by a renewed sense of wonder. For years, I had viewed the universe as a battleground, a place where survival depended on strength and cunning. But through her lens, I saw it differently, as a tapestry of interconnected lives, each thread contributing to the greater design. Even the smallest act of kindness, she explained, could ripple outward, shaping destinies in ways we might never witness. Still, there were moments when her presence unsettled me. Not because of fear, but because of the intensity of emotion she stirred within me. Emotions I had long suppressed resurfaced with startling clarity. Longing, desire, even love. These feelings terrified me, not because they were unwelcome, but because they threatened to consume me. What did it mean to care for someone so fundamentally different? Could such a bond endure, or was it doomed to collapse under the weight of impossibility? One night, as we sat beside a tranquil lake whose surface mirrored the heavens above, I voiced my fears. What happens when this ends? I asked, my voice barely audible over the gentle lapping of water. When you return to your world, and I remain here, will any of this matter? She reached out, her fingers brushing mine, a gesture so simple, yet laden with meaning. Everything matters, she replied firmly. Every word, every touch, every moment we share shapes who we are. Whether it lasts forever or fades like morning dew is irrelevant. What remains is the truth of it, the fact that it existed at all. Her words offered little comfort, but they anchored me nonetheless. Perhaps the uncertainty was part of the magic, the bittersweet beauty of knowing that some connections transcend time and space, even if they cannot be sustained indefinitely. As weeks turned into months, our bond grew stronger, defying logic and convention. Yet beneath the surface of our blossoming relationship lurked shadows, questions left unanswered, truths unspoken. Who was she, really? Why had she chosen me? And what role did I play in the larger narrative of her life, her people, her destiny? The answers, when they came, arrived not in words but in actions. One fateful night, as we wandered through a crystalline cavern illuminated by bioluminescent fungi, she stopped abruptly, her posture rigid with tension. "They've found me," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of dread and resolve. "Who?" I demanded, instinctively moving to shield her. "Your enemies?" "No," she said sharply, shaking her head. "My guardians. Those tasked with ensuring I fulfill my duty." Her admission sent a chill down my spine. Guardians implied protection, yes, but also control. Were they coming to take her away? To sever the fragile thread that bound us together? "They won't harm you," she assured me, reading the panic in my eyes. "But they will try to separate us. They believe my attachment to you compromises my ability to lead." "And do they?" I challenged, anger simmering beneath my words. "Is loving someone, caring for someone, a weakness?" Her gaze locked onto mine, fierce and unyielding. "No, it is a strength. But not everyone sees it that way." Before I could respond, the cavern trembled, the ground quaking beneath our feet. From the shadows emerged figures cloaked in shimmering armor, their forms sleek and angular, reminiscent of predatory birds. Their weapons glinted ominously in the dim light, humming with energy that crackled in the air. "Princess," one of them intoned, his voice devoid of emotion. "You must come with us. Your presence is required." She stepped forward, placing herself between me and the intruders. "I will not abandon him," she declared, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. The leader hesitated, his helmet tilting slightly as though assessing her defiance. Your affections cloud your judgment. This human is a distraction, nothing more. That is where you are wrong, she countered, her voice rising with conviction. He reminds me of what truly matters. Of why I fight, not for power, not for glory, but for the chance to create a better future. A future where beings like him and me can coexist without fear or prejudice. Her words hung in the air, charged with defiance and hope. For a moment, it seemed as though the Guardians might relent. Then, without warning, they raised their weapons, aiming directly at me. No! She screamed, throwing herself in front of me. The blast of energy struck her instead, sending her sprawling to the ground. I rushed to her side, cradling her limp form in my arms. Why did you do that? I choked out, tears blurring my vision. Why protect me? Her lips curved into a faint smile, despite the pain etched across her features. Because you make me brave, she whispered. Because you remind me that love is worth fighting for. Rage surged within me, raw and uncontrollable. With a roar, I lunged at the nearest Guardian, my fists colliding with their metallic exterior. They retaliated swiftly, their blows precise and calculated, but I didn't care. All that mattered was protecting her, shielding her from further harm. Through the chaos, I heard her voice, weak but insistent. Stop, please. Reluctantly, I obeyed, dropping to my knees beside her. Her breathing was shallow, her luminous skin dimmed by the toll of the injury. The Guardian stood back, watching impassively as she struggled to sit up. This isn't over, she said, addressing them with steely determination. You may take me back, but you cannot erase what has happened here. What we have built together. The leader inclined his head, a gesture of reluctant acknowledgement. Very well. But know this, Princess, the path you choose will not be easy. It will test you in ways you cannot imagine. I am ready, she replied, her voice steady despite her weakened state. Turning to me, she added, and so are you. As they prepared to transport her away, she reached out, clasping my hand one final time. Remember what I told you, she urged. Everything matters. Hold on to that, no matter what happens next. Then, with a flash of light, she was gone, leaving me alone in the cavern, surrounded by echoes of her promise and the haunting certainty that our story was far from finished. The cavern fell silent, save for the faint hum of residual energy lingering in the air. My hands trembled as they hovered over the spot where she had been moments before, grasping at nothing but emptiness. Her absence was suffocating, a void that seemed to stretch infinitely within me. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, trying to ground myself in the physical pain rather than the emotional chasm threatening to swallow me whole. But even as despair clawed at my chest, her final words echoed in my mind like a mantra, everything matters. It wasn't just a reassurance, it was a challenge. A call to action. She had entrusted me with something far greater than her memory. She had given me purpose. And if there was one thing I understood as a warrior, it was the importance of honoring a vow. I rose to my feet, brushing off the dust and debris from the skirmish. The Guardians were gone, their presence erased as though they had never existed. But their warning lingered, a reminder that whatever path lay ahead would demand more from me than brute strength or blind determination. This was no longer about protecting myself or even avenging her sacrifice. It was about proving that what we shared transcended boundaries, species, and fate itself. Days turned into weeks as I scoured every resource available to uncover any trace of her world. Libraries, archives, classified databases, nothing was off limits. My search became an obsession, consuming every waking moment. Allies who once knew me only as a soldier began to see a man driven by something deeper, something almost feral in its intensity. Some tried to dissuade me, warning that chasing after an alien princess was tantamount to madness. Others offered cautious support, intrigued by the possibility of bridging two worlds through such an unlikely connection. It was during one of these late-night research sessions that I stumbled upon a clue, a fragment of star charts etched onto ancient parchment buried deep within a forgotten archive. The symbols were unfamiliar, yet they resonated with a strange familiarity, as though they aligned with memories I couldn't consciously recall. At first glance, they appeared random, but when overlaid against known constellations, they formed a pattern pointing toward a distant quadrant of the galaxy. The coordinates led to a nebula shrouded in myth and mystery, a place referred to in whispers as the Veil. Legend spoke of civilizations lost within its swirling mists, cut off from the rest of the universe by forces both natural and supernatural. To venture there was considered suicide, a journey few dared attempt and none returned from. Yet, as I traced the lines connecting the stars, I felt an inexplicable certainty that this was where I would find her. Preparations for the voyage consumed the better part of a month. Supplies were gathered, equipment calibrated, and contingencies planned for scenarios ranging from hostile encounters to catastrophic system failures. Every step of the process was meticulous, born not just of necessity but of reverence. This wasn't merely a mission, it was a pilgrimage. Each item packed, each calculation made, carried the weight of everything she had taught me about courage, love, and the unyielding power of hope. On the eve of departure, I found myself standing beneath the same ancient forest canopy where our story had begun. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves whispering secrets older than time. Closing my eyes, I could almost feel her presence beside me, her voice soft but unwavering. "Are you ready?" she seemed to ask, though the sound came only from within. "I don't know," I admitted aloud, my breath misting in the cool night air. "But I have to try." When morning broke, I boarded the ship, a sleek vessel designed for speed and stealth, and set course for the unknown. As the engines roared to life and Earth faded into the distance, I allowed myself a single glance backward. The planet shimmered like a pale blue jewel against the vast expanse of space, a reminder of all I was leaving behind, and all I hoped to reclaim. The journey to the Veil was grueling, fraught with challenges that tested both my resolve and the limits of human endurance. Space stretched endlessly before me, a canvas of darkness punctuated by pinpricks of light. Days blurred together, marked only by the rhythmic hum of the ship systems and the occasional flash of cosmic phenomena outside the viewport. Loneliness gnawed at the edges of my sanity, but I welcomed it. Pain kept me sharp, focused. It reminded me why I was here. As I approached the nebula, its ethereal beauty took my breath away. Swirling clouds of iridescent gas danced across the void, casting hues of violet, gold, and cerulean that defied description. Within its depths, entire solar systems flickered like candles caught in a storm. It was mesmerizing and utterly disorienting. Navigation systems faltered under the interference, forcing me to rely on instinct and the crude star charts I had painstakingly deciphered. Then, without warning, the ship shuddered violently, caught in some invisible current pulling me deeper into the heart of the nebula. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and for a brief, terrifying moment, I thought I might be lost forever. But as suddenly as it began, the turbulence subsided, leaving the ship adrift in a serene pocket of space unlike anything I had ever seen. Before me loomed a colossal structure suspended in the void, a city forged from living crystal, its spires reaching skyward like frozen flames. Light pulsed through its veins, casting intricate patterns that shifted and changed with each passing second. It was alien and beautiful, a testament to a civilization far beyond human comprehension. And there, standing on a balcony overlooking the expanse, was her silhouette. My heart leapt into my throat as I scrambled to dock the ship, abandoning caution in favor of urgency. When the hatch opened, I sprinted toward her, ignoring the stares of those around me. Her people, clad in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid metal. They parted silently as I approached, their expressions unreadable but tinged with curiosity. She turned at the sound of my footsteps, her face lighting up with a mixture of disbelief and joy. For a moment, neither of us moved, locked in a gaze that spanned galaxies and lifetimes. Then, unable to resist any longer, I closed the distance between us, pulling her into an embrace so fierce it threatened to crush us both. "You came," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. "You actually came. How could I not?" I replied, my own voice thick with tears. "You told me everything matters. I wasn't about to let you face this alone." Her laughter was soft, musical, filling the air with warmth despite the tension radiating from those watching us. Slowly, reluctantly, we pulled apart, turning to face the crowd that had gathered. Among them stood the guardians, their armor gleaming ominously in the crystalline light. "This is unprecedented," one of them declared, stepping forward. "A human daring to enter our realm, defying the laws of nature and diplomacy alike." "He is not just a human," she countered, her tone firm and unyielding. "He is my equal, my partner, and he has proven himself worthy of standing beside me." Murmurs rippled through the assembly, a mixture of awe and skepticism. The guardian regarded me with narrowed eyes, his expression unreadable. "Proven how? By crossing impossible distances? By risking his life for yours?" "Yes," she said simply. "By choosing love over fear. By reminding us that strength lies not in domination, but in unity." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Around us, the citizens of her world exchanged glances, some nodding slowly while others frowned in contemplation. Even the guardians seemed uncertain, their stoic facades cracking ever so slightly. Finally, the leader spoke again, his voice softer now, almost hesitant. "If what you say is true, if this human truly embodies the values we claim to uphold, then perhaps his presence here is not an act of defiance, but destiny." A collective gasp swept through the crowd, followed by murmurs of agreement. The tension eased, replaced by a sense of cautious optimism. Still, the guardian fixed his gaze on me, his next words carrying the weight of a challenge. "But know this, human, should you choose to remain, you will be bound to our cause. Your actions will reflect not only upon yourself but upon her, and upon the future of both our peoples. Are you prepared for such responsibility?" I didn't hesitate. Looking into her eyes, seeing the trust and love reflected there, I knew my answer. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Her smile was radiant, brighter than the stars surrounding us. Taking my hand, she turned to address her people, her voice ringing out with clarity and conviction. "Let this day mark the beginning of a new era, an alliance between worlds, built not on conquest, but on understanding. Together, we can forge a future where differences are celebrated, not feared. Where love triumphs over division." Cheers erupted, echoing through the crystalline city like a symphony of hope. As she led me forward, side by side, I felt a profound sense of belonging. Not just to her, but to this moment, this cause, this shared vision of what could be. Yet even as the celebration unfolded, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey was far from over. Somewhere beyond the horizon, shadows stirred, hinting at challenges yet unseen. But for now, surrounded by the brilliance of her world and the promise of what lay ahead, I allowed myself to believe, to truly believe, that everything mattered. The days that followed were a whirlwind of introductions, ceremonies, and negotiations. Her people, though initially wary, began to see me not as an outsider but as a symbol of possibility, a bridge between their world and mine. Through her guidance, I learned their customs, their language, their history. It was overwhelming at times, the weight of so much knowledge pressing down on me, but she was always there, patient and encouraging. "You're doing better than anyone could have expected," she told me one evening as we walked along a luminous bridge suspended high above the city. Below us, rivers of light flowed like liquid stars, casting reflections that danced across her face. "They respect you now." "Respect isn't the same as trust," I replied, my voice tinged with doubt. "And trust is what we'll need if this alliance is going to work." She stopped, turning to face me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Trust takes time. But you've already given them something far more valuable. Hope. That's a start." Her faith in me was unwavering, even when my own confidence wavered. Each day brought new challenges, debates over trade agreements, discussions about shared technologies, debates about cultural integration. But through it all, we stood together, united by a bond stronger than any obstacle. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, subtle signs began to emerge that not everyone welcomed this newfound unity. Whispers reached us of dissent among certain factions within her society, those who believed that aligning with humans would dilute their purity, compromise their traditions. At first, these murmurs seemed harmless, mere echoes of resistance fading into the background noise of progress. But then came the attacks. It started small, sabotage of joint projects, anonymous threats scrawled in glowing script on public walls. Then, one night, A group of extremists infiltrated the palace itself, targeting key advisors and sabotaging critical systems. Chaos erupted, alarms blaring as guards scrambled to contain the breach. Amid the confusion, I found myself face to face with one of the assailants, a figure cloaked in shadow, wielding a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Before I could react, she stepped between us, her presence commanding silence. "Enough!" she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The attacker hesitated, lowering their weapons slightly as recognition dawned in their eyes. "Princess," they said, their tone laced with venom. "You shame us with your weakness. This human has corrupted you." Her expression hardened, steel beneath velvet. "I am not ashamed of who I am or what I believe. If you cannot accept change, then perhaps you do not belong here." For a moment, no one moved. Then, with a snarl of frustration, the attacker retreated, vanishing into the shadows as quickly as they had appeared. The crisis was averted, but the message was clear: our journey toward peace would not be without sacrifice. In the aftermath of the attack, she called for an emergency council meeting, gathering leaders from both worlds to address the growing unrest. Standing before them, she spoke with a clarity and conviction that left no room for ambiguity. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "We can choose fear, the path of division, of isolation, or we can choose courage. Courage to embrace the unknown, to build bridges where none existed before. Yes, there will be challenges. There will be those who resist. But I ask you, is the cost of fear truly worth it? Or are we brave enough to imagine a future where differences enrich us rather than divide us?" Her words ignited a spark within the assembly, sparking heated debates that stretched late into the night. Some argued passionately for caution, warning of the risks inherent in such radical collaboration. Others countered with visions of prosperity, of mutual growth and understanding. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. By dawn, a tentative agreement had been reached, a trial period during which both societies would commit to working together, fostering trust through shared endeavors. As the council adjourned, exhaustion etched across every face, she turned to me, her smile weary but triumphant. "It's a beginning," she said softly. "Not the end, but a step forward." "It's more than I ever dreamed possible," I admitted, pulling her close. "But it's not just because of me. It's because of you." Her laughter was soft, melodic. "No, human. It's because of us." Time passed, and the alliance flourished. Projects once deemed impossible became reality. Sustainable energy grids powered by alien technology, medical advancements saving lives on both planets, cultural exchanges that enriched art, music, and philosophy. Our two worlds grew closer, bound not just by treaties but by shared dreams. Yet, even amidst the triumphs, I couldn't ignore the lingering sense of unease. The extremists hadn't disappeared, they had merely gone underground, biding their time. And while her people embraced the changes, some still harbored resentment, viewing me as a reminder of everything they feared losing. One evening, as we strolled through a garden bathed in twilight, she broached the subject herself. "Do you ever wonder if it's too much?" she asked, her gaze distant. "If we're asking too much of them, and of ourselves?" I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Change is never easy. But look around you. Look at what we've built. Isn't it worth fighting for?" She nodded, though her smile was tinged with sadness. "Yes. But sometimes I worry. What happens when the fighting doesn't stop?" Her question hung in the air, unanswered. Because deep down, I didn't know. All I knew was that I would stand by her side, no matter what came next. The final test arrived sooner than either of us anticipated. A massive fleet of ships descended upon her world, led by a rogue faction determined to sever ties with humanity once and for all. Their leader, a charismatic general with a grudge against outsiders, broadcast a chilling ultimatum: exile the human intruder or face annihilation. Panic swept through the city, citizens torn between loyalty to their princess and fear of destruction. Even some of her closest allies urged her to comply, arguing that sacrificing one life was preferable to risking millions. But she refused, her resolve unshakable. "I will not abandon him," she declared, addressing the crowd gathered in the central plaza. Because abandoning him means abandoning everything we've fought for. Everything we've dreamed of. If we yield now, we surrender not just to them, but to fear itself. Her words galvanized the people, rallying them to defend their newfound unity. Together, we devised a plan. Using the combined resources of both worlds, we fortified the city, preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of our alliance. When the enemy fleet launched its assault, the skies lit up with bursts of energy, the clash of weapons reverberating like thunder. From the front lines, I fought alongside her warriors, proving myself not just as her partner but as a defender of their home. Side by side, we held the line, refusing to yield an inch. The turning point came when she herself took to the battlefield, wielding a staff imbued with ancient power. With a cry that echoed across the heavens, she unleashed a wave of energy that crippled the invaders' flagship, forcing their retreat. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, cheers erupted from every corner of the city. But victory came at a cost. She collapsed into my arms, weakened by the strain of channeling such immense power. Cradling her against me, I felt tears streaming down my face, unable to form words. "Don't cry," she whispered, her voice faint but filled with warmth. "We did it. We proved them wrong." "Yes," I choked out, holding her tighter. "But at what price?" Her smile was serene, almost otherworldly. "At the price of love. And that, human, is a price worth paying." In the days that followed, she recovered, her strength returning slowly but surely. The alliance, forged in fire and tempered by sacrifice, emerged stronger than ever. Though scars remained, both visible and invisible, they served as reminders of how far we had come. Standing together on the balcony overlooking the city, now rebuilt and thriving, she leaned her head against my shoulder. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" she asked quietly. "That I don't know what you mean?" I teased, earning a soft laugh. "No," she said, nudging me playfully. "That love is worth fighting for." I wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "And I meant it. Every word." She sighed contentedly, gazing out at the horizon where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across velvet. "Then let's keep fighting. For each other. For our worlds. For everything that matters." As we stood there, bathed in the glow of twin moons rising over the crystalline spires, I realized that our story wasn't ending. It was evolving. Love, after all, isn't confined to beginnings or endings. It exists in the moments in between, in the choices we make and the lives we touch. And as long as we chose to fight for it, our story would continue, to infinity and beyond.